Who was the last person to see Anne Burrell alive? That question has haunted fans, friends, and even investigators since the moment the tragic news broke. We all saw that final smiling photo. We read the short obituary. We watched the tributes pour in. But underneath all the sadness, there's been a quiet, chilling mystery growing. Someone was with her. Someone knows what really happened that night. And that person has completely vanished from the spotlight. What are they hiding? Why haven't they come forward? And how does their silence change everything we thought we knew? This isn't just about a celebrity death. This is about a question that could rewrite Anne Burrell's legacy and possibly reveal a truth that's been buried deep. Let's break it down, because the trail of clues begins with a name that's been whispered but never confirmed. It started out as a simple evening, June 16th, just one night before Anne Burrell was found unresponsive in her home. She had a few close friends over, nothing flashy, just food, laughter, maybe a glass or two of wine. Neighbors reported soft music, the sound of dishes clinking, and Anne's unmistakable laugh echoing across her patio. But here's the thing, only 4 people were there that night. 3 have already spoken to investigators. One hasn't his name, Ben. That's not his real name. But for privacy and legal reasons, let's call him that for now. Ben wasn't a celebrity, not a chef, not a producer, just someone Anne trusted deeply, and as far as we know, he was the last person to leave her house that night. Or maybe the last one who didn't. So, who is this mystery man? Ben is believed to be a longtime friend of Anne's. They met years ago before she hit major fame. He wasn't part of the TV world, but he knew how to stay behind the curtain, according to multiple sources, and often called him her anchor, a grounding presence. Someone who understood her real self, the one without makeup, lights, or applause. They were close, sometimes even rumored to be more than friends. But Anne never confirmed anything publicly. And Ben, he never did interviews, never posted about her, never chased the fame. That's what makes his sudden disappearance so suspicious. Because when the news of Anne's passing broke, Ben didn't say a word. Not to the press, not on social media, not even to Anne's closest friends. He was just gone. Let's go back to that dinner party. According to 2 guests, the night ended around 10 p.m. Everyone hugged goodbye. Anne was a little tired, but in good spirits. But Ben stayed behind. One guest recalls hearing him say, "I'll help." Her cleanup, "You guys go ahead," sounds innocent enough, right? But here's what's strange. No one has seen or heard from Ben since that night. He didn't attend the memorial. He didn't call anyone to check in. And he hasn't responded to multiple attempts from investigators to reach him. Now, let's be clear. We are not accusing Ben of anything. But in a case like this, where timing and details matter, his silence raises serious questions, especially considering what we found out next. Anne lived in a secured building, like most high-profile names. Her property had security cameras, mainly for protection. Investigators reviewed the footage from the night of June 16th. Here's what they found. 2 guests left at exactly 10:02 p.m., a third left at 10:16 p.m., and Ben is seen at the front door, but never shown leaving the property. That's the part that makes your stomach drop, because there's only one explanation. Either the cameras missed something, or Ben never left. This has led to 3 theories. He stayed the night and left in the early morning hours. He left through a back entrance, though none was recorded. Or he's covering something up now. Remember, no foul play was reported, no forced entry, no physical harm. But emotionally, there's a missing piece to this puzzle, and that missing piece might be Ben. Here's a heartbreaking detail. When Anne's phone was recovered, there were several unsent messages. Most were draft texts she had started, but never hit send. One of them was addressed to Ben. "Hey, I think I need to talk. It's been a weird night." That message was typed at 10:41 p.m., just 40 minutes after her other friends had left. She never sent it. Why? Was she afraid of how he'd respond? Was she second-guessing herself? Or was she never given the chance? That one unsent message tells us so much, and yet not enough. It's like reaching out into the dark and finding nothing there. Anne's sister had spoken to her just 3 days before everything happened. It was a casual check-in, nothing deep, just the usual sisterly chat. But during that conversation, Anne had said something strange. She mentioned feeling watched, and that she wasn't sure who she could trust anymore. At the time, her sister brushed it off as stress. Anne had always been dramatic when she was overwhelmed, but looking back now, those words feel like a red flag, a quiet cry for help hidden behind small talk. And then there's what Ben did in the weeks leading up to that night. Friends noticed a shift in him. He was more distant, less available, and even joked to someone at work that Ben's going through his disappearing act again. It was said with a laugh, but now that laugh feels uneasy, because maybe he wasn't just pulling away, maybe he was hiding something. What's even more unsettling is that Ben reportedly had a key to Anne's home. That wasn't unusual or close, but it means that if he stayed the night, he didn't need to buzz in or out. He could have left at any time without being seen, and that raises more questions than it answers. Asterisk. Someone close to Anne's inner circle told investigators that she had been having trouble sleeping. They said she was exhausted and that she'd confided in them about waking up in the middle of the night feeling anxious, like something was wrong. This wasn't just stress. It was the kind of restlessness that makes your skin crawl. She had canceled 2 work meetings the week before. That was unlike her. Anne didn't cancel things. She was a workhorse, a professional. But in her last week, she barely responded to emails. She turned down a chance to appear on a live cooking segment, something she normally loved. When asked why, she simply said, "Not feeling up to it." Another strange clue: her phone's location data showed that she didn't leave her house at all the day before her death. She didn't go grocery shopping, didn't walk the dog, didn't even go out to get coffee something. She did religiously every morning. It was like she'd shut herself off completely. But was it her choice? Or was she with someone who influenced that? One of her neighbors mentioned hearing voices late that night. Nothing alarming, just talking. But at some point, the voices turned into what sounded like an argument. It wasn't loud. It didn't last long. But it happened around 1 a.m. well after everyone else had supposedly left. If Ben stayed, was he still there at 1 a.m.? Was he awake, struggling with something deeper than anyone realized? And if she was in distress, why didn't she call for help? Could she not? The autopsy revealed no signs of violence, but there were signs of severe emotional stress. A toxicology report is still pending. Some believe it might reveal more something chemical, something medical. But others believe the truth is more subtle than any report can show. Because Anne had been carrying the weight of something unseen. And Ben F., he was truly the last person with her may be the only one who knows exactly what that weight was. He hasn't responded to calls from her family. He hasn't made any public comment. And the last time his phone pinged was 2 towns over, less than 12 hours after Anne was found that same morning. Anne's assistant arrived at her home, knocking repeatedly. When there was no answer, they used the spare key and walked in. What they saw was devastating. Anne was in bed, lying peacefully, as if asleep. There were no obvious signs of trauma, but the eerie calm in the room felt wrong. A cup of tea, untouched. Her phone beside her, screen lit up with a half-typed message, and beside the bed Ben's jacket, yes, Ben's jacket, folded neatly on the arm of a chair. That one detail shook everyone. It meant he was there. It meant he didn't just stay a little late. He stayed until at least the early morning hours, and then disappeared. Why didn't he call anyone? Why didn't he alert the authorities? Why didn't he stay, explain, or even leave a note? To this day, Ben hasn't come forward. And while no charges have been filed, investigators have called him a person of interest. Not because they believe he caused Anne's death, but because he might be the only person who truly understands what she was going through. Friends say Anne was fiercely private. She didn't like to burden others. But with Ben, she could talk. And that makes his silence feel like more than just grief. It feels like hiding. Some speculate he may be protecting Anne's secrets. Others believe he's avoiding scrutiny. Either way, his absence has become the center of a storm. People are angry, they want answers, they want closure. Because for someone who was so loved, so open with her fans, Anne's final moments feel heartbreakingly closed off. And yet, there's still hope. Hope that Ben will come forward. Hope that the full story will be told. Hope that Anne's last night won't stay a mystery forever. There's one more detail you need to hear. A voicemail never shared publicly left by Anne just 24 hours before she died. And it changes everything. The voicemail was discovered by Anne's sister while going through her old messages. It had been overlooked at first, just another saved audio file buried in a sea of birthday wishes and food event invites. But this one, it was different. Anne's voice was softer than usual, slower, like she was choosing her words carefully. "Hey, just wanted to hear your voice. Things feel weird lately. I don't know, maybe I'm just tired. I'll call you tomorrow." That was it. That was the entire message. No big confessions. No breakdown, but there was something in her tone, something you feel more than hear. Like she was reaching out, but pulling back at the same time. Like she wanted to say more, but couldn't. And that one sentence, "Things feel weird lately," has become a haunting echo in everyone's minds. What did she mean? What felt weird? Was it something she sensed in herself? Or in someone around her? That voicemail was left at 4:37 p.m. on June 16th, the same day as the dinner party, just hours before Ben arrived, just hours before everything changed. Her sister said she tried calling back later that night, but it went straight to voicemail, and by the time she tried again the next morning, it was already too late. This is where the timeline gets painful. Anne had every intention of reaching out again. She said it herself, "I'll call you tomorrow." She didn't sound hopeless. She didn't sound lost. She sounded tired. That's what keeps coming up in every conversation, every message, every interview, how tired Anne had been. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. Like she'd been carrying something heavy, quietly, for too long. And maybe Ben knew about it. Maybe he even tried to help. Or maybe he was part of that weight she was carrying. That's the hardest part about grief wrapped in mystery. You start questioning everything. Every word, every silence. Every gap in the timeline becomes a hole that swallows you whole. Assistant told police that when they found her, there were signs that she'd tried to write something. A pen on the floor, a notebook nearby, open to a blank page. But no note, no explanation, just silence. And silence can be louder than any confession. That silence has now stretched for weeks. No new public statement from investigators. No press conference, just quiet digging, quiet waiting, quiet wondering. There was one more thing in that room. A framed photo on her nightstand. It was old back from her early days, before the spotlight, a group photo of 4 friends, smiling, sweaty from laughter, drinks in their hands, arms wrapped around each other like a family. And there, standing right next to her, was Ben. He was part of her life long before she was a celebrity, before the shows, the cookbooks, the cameras. He was one of the people who knew Anne Burrell when she was just Anne. Which is why this silence is so painful. He wasn't just the last person to see her alive. He was someone she trusted. And yet, at the one moment where his voice could bring peace, clarity, or even just a bit of truth, he's vanished. People have tried to find him, journalists, friends, even fans, but every lead dries up, every number disconnected, every address outdated. It's like he never existed, or like he's running from something. There's speculation that he left the country, that he's hiding out with family somewhere far off the grid, that he's afraid of being blamed, judged, even shamed. But the truth is, no one knows. And that's what's so deeply frustrating about this entire situation. We're left with so many pieces, and no one to put them together. There's Anne beloved, talented, tired. There's the dinner party fun, casual, low-key. There's the unsent message, the voicemail, the half-written note. And there's Ben, present, then absent, with more questions than answers. This wasn't how her story was supposed to end. Anne Burrell wasn't just a TV personality. She was real, she was vibrant, she was deeply human. She made us laugh, taught us to cook, and showed us how to be bold. And in her final moments, it seems she was quieter than ever before. But that doesn't mean we stop asking. Who was with her? What did they see? And why haven't they come forward? There's one more clue. That might hold the answer voicemail Ben received just after leaving Anne's home. And that voicemail might be the final key. The voicemail wasn't from Anne. It came in just after 6 a.m. on June 17th. The hours after Anne was believed to have passed, we only know about this message because of a single person, Ben's roommate from 2 years ago. He came forward quietly, anonymously, and shared what he remembered. Apparently, Ben had once synced his phone to a shared iCloud account, something he forgot about. And for a brief window, messages and voicemails from Ben's phone could still be accessed from an old iPad. What was on that voicemail? A woman's voice. Calm, soft-spoken, but serious. You need to leave today. Don't talk to anyone. You know why? That was it. No name, no details, just that one sentence. And a cold final click. Now, could this be unrelated? Maybe, but when someone disappears the same morning, a woman he was with dies mysteriously and then receives a cryptic warning like that. You can't ignore it. And here's what makes it more disturbing. The voicemail was deleted later that same day. Not from the phone, but from the cloud account, manually, meaning someone had logged in, found it, and erased it. By the time investigators were tipped off, it was too late to recover the original. But the roommate had already recorded it, and while the audio hasn't been officially released, those who've heard it say, it sounds like someone who knew exactly what happened. Someone who didn't want the world to know. Someone who wanted Ben gone. So now we're looking at something even bigger than a disappearance. We're looking at a possible cover dash-up. Because here's the truth. If Ben was simply scared, overwhelmed, or grieving, why delete a voicemail? Why run? Why avoid every single person who ever loved, and why ignore even her funeral? People have grieved in silence before, but not like this. Not with unanswered questions. Not with a jacket left behind. Not with a voicemail telling you to get out now. And still, no one can find him. Not the fans. Not the family. Not the reporters who've been chasing this story from day one. But there's another layer. Someone from the restaurant where Anne had her last public appearance came forward with a new detail. They said she came in that afternoon, June 16th, with a man. She looked tired. Her smile was polite but tight. She wasn't her usual bubbly self, and that man, the server, remembered him having a backpack, a faded black hoodie. And when shown a photo, he confirmed it was Ben. Now this changes the timeline. It proves he didn't just show up for dinner. He was with her the entire day. That opens up a bigger window of time. More possibilities, more questions. What did they talk about? Was she already feeling off? Did something happen that day that triggered the spiral? A source close to Anne revealed she had just received a troubling phone call earlier that morning. A call that left her visibly shaken. She didn't say what it was about, only that it was personal. She had told someone, "I'm over this. I don't want this following me forever." We still don't know what this was. Was it something from her past? A secret? A person she thought she'd left behind? Whatever it was, it clearly rattled her. And then Ben shows up. They spend the entire day together. Dinner happens, friends leave, he stays, and then silence the next morning, Anne is gone. And Ben disappeared. There are too many coincidences here. And what's worse, the police have said there's no official investigation because there's no confirmed crime. But that's the problem with emotional pain. With invisible wounds, there may never be a crime scene. No weapon, no forced entry. But that doesn't mean something terrible didn't happen. You can break a person without ever laying a hand on them. You can disappear and leave behind more damage than any visible scar. People who knew Anne well say she was deeply sensitive. Strong on the outside, yes, but inside, a woman who felt everything. Maybe that's why she trusted Ben. Maybe that's why she didn't ask for help. And maybe that's why she couldn't say goodbye. There's one last thing. Her family recently shared a page from her private journal, something they debated releasing, but eventually felt the world needed to see. It was dated just 4 days before her death. It read, "If I disappeared tomorrow, would anyone actually know the truth? Would they believe I was tired? Or would they blame me for not saying something sooner? I want to scream, but I don't want to make a scene, so instead, I smile and I wait." That one entry says it all. She was waiting to be seen, waiting for someone to notice the weight she was carrying, waiting for someone, maybe Ben, to help her through it, but help never came. And now we're left with a story half told. There's something haunting about a story that ends with silence. No final words, no dramatic moment on camera, just one person gone, and another who refuses to speak. And Burrell's death didn't come with answers. It came with echoes of conversations cut short, of people who saw signs but didn't know what they meant, of a man who may have been there but won't say what happened. And it leaves all of us wondering, what do you do when the truth disappears with someone who is never meant to be part of the story? Because in the end, that's what Ben was, a shadow in the background, a familiar presence to Anne, but a stranger to the world. Now he's the only thread left that might unravel the mystery. And yet, even now, there's been no sign of him. No trace. His apartment emptied, his phone disconnected, social media wiped clean. Even mutual friends have stopped asking, as if they've accepted that he doesn't want to be found. But we haven't, because Anne mattered. Her life, her laughter, her late-night recipes, her joy that mattered. And so do the questions she left behind. The world deserves closure. Her fans deserve peace. Her family deserves truth. And maybe, just maybe, Ben is watching. Maybe he's hearing the rumors, the speculation, the pain, and maybe the silence is weighing on him more than he expected. Here's the thing. About guilt, it doesn't always come from doing something wrong. Sometimes, it comes from doing nothing when it mattered most. And in Anne's case, maybe all she needed was someone to stay. Not just physically, but emotionally. To sit with her, to hear the unspoken words. To say you're not alone, and mean it. But that moment passed. To finish, what we do know is this. Anne Burrell spent her final day with someone she trusted. She left behind unfinished messages, whispered fears and subtle signs. And when morning came, her light was gone. But the questions had just begun. So who was the last person to see Anne Burrell alive? Never fully know what really happened that night. But we can still honor her by listening more closely to the people around us. By checking in on the strong ones, by being present for real, for good. Anne once said in an interview, "People think I'm tough, but I'm just loud. What I really want is for people to feel like they belong." Let's make sure she still does, even in memory. Cook something she loved. Watch one of her old episodes. Laugh loud. Cry when you need to. And if someone says they're tired, listen. Not just with your ears, but with your heart. Because sometimes, the strongest people say the least, and it's up to us to hear them anyway. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If this touched you, even a little, please share it. Someone out there might need to hear it. And if you've ever felt like an tired, unseen, overwhelmed, carry it alone, reach out, talk to someone. There is always help. There is always hope. This has been Gossip Bucketware. We don't just report the headlines. We tell the truth behind them. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.